Welcome to episode 3 of the College Tennis Series podcast at Obona Tennis, where we talk to current and former collegiate tennis players across all divisions to find out what their training structure was like as a junior player that helped them make it to their respective schools. This week we have Ethan Green from Denison University discussing how he made it to a Division I playing level after starting tennis at the age of 10 years old, yet chose to go to Division III and is extremely happy with his decision. I hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did and ultimately share it with all your friends so we can help as many families put in place the training structure they need to help their child achieve their tennis goals. Last but not least, I want to give a special shout out to the Salt Lake Tennis and Health Club. Great job developing Ethan and all the other players that you're working with. I hope to see you all in person one day. Keep up the great work and hope to see you all soon. Ethan, thank you for giving me your time to talk a little bit about your journey over at Denison University and how you got there, man.
Of course, yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, well, look, I want to get started. There's a lot I want to get to, and the big question mark that we're going to have everybody waiting to hear the answer, which is going to be at the end, which is why someone as good as you with such a good level of tennis, even in juniors, that's where I want to get to too, is playing at a D3 school. Now, me and you know a little bit more about it, but a lot of listeners don't, and so we're going to get to that at the end. But to get started, how old were you when you first started playing tennis?
I first started playing like probably around 10 years old, but I didn't really take it
10.
seriously till probably 13 or 14 because I was playing some other sports.
Wow, 10. I
When
mean,
I
that's a
started,
pretty late start.
yeah, yeah.
And so, I mean, what got you going at 10?
Honestly, I don't know. Like I was really competitive with soccer. That was like my main thing, and then basketball was also a pretty big focus of mine. But yeah, I didn't really like soccer, and I was pretty short when I played basketball. I'm a bit taller now, but um, that wasn't gonna work out. So I don't know. I chose tennis. No one in my family really plays, so yeah, I don't know how it worked out, but yeah.
Do you remember that decision? Like, hey, I'm just going to try tennis, and then you just found you're pretty good at it and you liked it. I mean, how did that get started?
Yeah, I don't really know. My dad, he has a friend that is pretty good at tennis, and he's a coach. So I gave a few lessons a try, and I kind of liked it. So I just took it on from there. But yeah,
Awesome. Well,
yeah.
I guess how old were you when you first started the other sports?
Yeah, those I started soccer super young, like, I don't even know how young, but then, yeah, I picked up basketball a couple years before tennis probably, so, yeah,
Okay, so you at least started building that athletic base when you were young.
exactly. Yeah,
Okay,
mhm,
yeah, because I think that's always pretty important. They say playing multiple sports, it's not just to avoid burnout; it's actually to develop as much of your athletic skills as possible.
yeah,
And I think that helped you when you got to tennis. You were already a pretty well coordinated athlete with some hand-eye coordination. So, in that sense, it was easier for you to pick up. I think if someone were to have not played any sports and sat on a chair and video gamed until they were
yeah.
10, I don't think they could have accomplished what you accomplished. So when you first started, you started doing some lessons. At what point did you start doing some group drills? You said it wasn't until you were about 13, 14 that you really started taking it seriously?
Yeah, I would say that's when I probably started playing, like, more tournaments and stuff, maybe even traveling for tournaments, but I don't know, I kinda started quickly. I was right when I started playing tennis, I started those groups. I didn't go to, like, a academy or anything like that. I just went to, like, my local club in Utah, but, yeah.
And then do you remember how many days a week you were playing before you took it seriously?
Yeah, probably a couple days a week, a few days a week, yeah.
Yeah, and no tournaments until 13, 14.
Yeah, maybe a couple local tournaments in the 12s,
Sure.
but, like, kind of irrelevant, yeah.
What got you to then want to sign up and play a tournament? Obviously, at first it was just for fun, and then what clicked in order for you to say, "Hey, let's go try and compete"?
Most of it was, like, me quitting soccer because that was probably my biggest sport at that age, and yeah, I just love sports in general, so I knew I had to play a sport, and again, basketball was really short at this time, so that just wasn't gonna work out, so I chose tennis, and yeah, I stuck with it, and I really liked it, so I wanted to get as good as I could.
So we know, you know, I grew up in Miami, live in Atlanta. We
Okay.
know the tennis scene in Florida, Texas, the South, and California is pretty big. But What's it like in Utah? I mean, are there a lot of tournaments? You have to travel a lot. To be honest, I don't know too many people that have said, "Yeah, I grew up playing tennis in Utah and just took it from there."
Yeah, I mean, it is a pretty small scene. I don't know, you have to travel to Vegas, and I mean, California's got a bunch of tournaments, so that's a pretty good place to travel to. But I don't know, I was lucky enough to have a few kids my age that were also pretty high level, and I don't know, we kind of helped each other out in that sense because there aren't a lot of tennis resources around. Um, and yeah, it's pretty small. Like Utah's a small state, obviously, but the tennis scene's also pretty small.
So probably most of your tournaments had to be travel weekends.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
definitely.
that's tough. I mean, when
Yeah,
you started doing that at first, was that pretty tiring for you, or was it just because it is beautiful
yeah.
driving around Utah, Las Vegas? So were you like, "Oh, this is great. This is fun," or like, "Okay, another weekend," but you did it because you love the tennis?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't love the traveling aspect because I had traveled for soccer before, so I was kind of used to that. But um, I don't know if I could find a local tournament, I'd love to play those because I don't know. I just traveling kind of added that bit of pressure. Like if I don't do so well, like all this money spent and stuff like that. And I don't know. I was super. I've always been super into school, so I hated missing class. But um, yeah, traveling was pretty fun just because it felt more competitive. It felt like I was really getting into tennis and stuff like that. So yeah,
Did you ever homeschool?
no, I just went to public school. Yeah,
So how did the school handle it? Because I'm sure you started to have a few absences.
yeah. I mean, it was okay. Like I took some pretty tough classes in high school. That's when it kind of started to catch up with me. But I don't know, time management. The teachers understand and stuff, so it wasn't terrible. And I never played that many tournaments growing up, honestly. Um, but yeah, it was fine.
You know, you mentioned something interesting there, which is it's something I've thought about more. Like when I was playing pro, I thought about this because I was just more in tune to my finances and everything. But you even mentioned there about how, when you traveled, you felt a little bit of pressure to want to do well because you knew your family was spending money.
Yeah.
I mean, how did you overcome that? Is that something that weighed on you a lot? Did you talk to other friends? Did they kind of think the same thing? Like, oh man, we made this effort, we got to win out here. Because it's a little different when you're on a team and you travel. It's not all on you. How is that? Because that's not something that's actually talked about enough. That kids quietly understand. Like, hey, my parents are putting a lot of resources behind me to go to these tournaments.
Yeah, I mean they've always been supportive. It's not like, oh, if you do bad, like we hate you or anything like that. But it was just like an added pressure for me just because if I lose a local tournament, I can just drive back home and forget about it almost. But if I'm all the way in California and I have to fly back or drive back, it's like kind of feels like a waste in a way. Like why did I even come here if I didn't do well? I mean that happens at any level of tennis, but I don't know, for me, like I was mostly traveling, so that was kind of the feeling I was getting.
Yeah, that's kind of tough because I imagine probably 80, especially when you start to get to a good level, that most of your tournaments were now travel tournaments, right? At
Yeah.
first, you can get away with some local ones that are nearby because you're just getting started, but then as you get good, you have to find a pretty level balance of competition, and you had to travel more. So now that means most of your tournaments you kind of had that quietly in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot, especially I used to work with somebody over in LA, and just I mean the amount of tournaments there that are
Insane.
there, it's insane. There were a lot of tournaments where they would play a tournament on the weekend just because they didn't get enough practice matches during the week, just because of the proximity of where they live. So the thought was, oh, just go sign up and play this. They live not too far from where the UTR tournament was in Newport Beach, and they just go and just get some matches and just go back and watch football at the
Yeah.
end of the day.
Crazy.
I mean, it's such a huge advantage. So, and it's also less energy intensive because they could just wake up in their own bed, no extra
Yeah.
nights staying at a hotel, no extra nights travel, a lot of less stuff to deal with. It is a huge advantage. So it's actually pretty impressive for you to come from not only a smaller place of tennis, but then also the amount of travel that you had to do. So you start to take tennis seriously around 13, 14.
Yeah.
So what does your training look like then? What did you change? What made you start to take it seriously?
Honestly, I don't know. And I would say I didn't really have like the belief that I could be good at tennis until like probably the 16s because I don't know, I didn't play my first like national tournament until um, like the end of 16s. So when I was in like Intermountain, like I kind of had this false sense of like, oh, I'm pretty good because there's not that many players in the Intermountain region. Um, so I felt like pretty good about myself. But then I went to the national tournament, and I mean the level is just insane. California kids are just better. They play more, and yeah, I don't know what made me take it more serious, but I just felt like I could be a lot better than I was.
And so when you started taking it more seriously, what did your training start to look like then?
Honestly, I never did private lessons, so I don't know. I did some smaller like semi-privates maybe with a couple of those other guys that are kind of my level, but it was mostly just like the groups that my club put on, and I mean just hitting outside of that with some other kids. So yeah.
Did you have some pretty good kids in those groups to push you?
Yeah, there were I mean there's a couple kids going D1 and stuff like that. So there are a couple guys that are around my level and a couple other D3 guys, so we could always push each other. Yeah.
That's good. So from a small place, or at least a smaller section of the country that doesn't produce, you found the one that actually produces very well with some great coaching and some good practice partners. How many kids were in your groups? Like when you were playing, like how many kids were on a court with you?
Yeah, it was probably, I mean, 4 kids to a court, maybe 5 if it was busy, but they did a pretty good job of like keeping the, I guess, top group um reserved for those like better kids, just so we could have the courts more to ourselves. But yeah.
Were you able to play some practice matches during the week? What was that
Yeah,
like?
yeah, like before group, after group, I would just hit with one of the kids, and yeah, just play a set or something.
Is that something you all would arrange, or would that be arranged by the coaches there?
Yeah, we would just do that on our own mostly.
All
Yeah.
right, and I asked that because I don't know if you know, but most kids nowadays they can't schedule anything. I mean, they
Really?
everything is scheduled by the parents, and everything has to be a private lesson or a group or a coach present, and they do not get any freedom to just play with a friend and hey, just go play a
Yeah,
set,
I
which I
mean,
think is actually
yeah.
important because when you don't have the watchful eye of a coach on you, you feel a little bit more freedom to just play around and try things. And sure, sometimes we're going to make mistakes, but I do think we kind of learn to feel the game in different ways because we're not so caught up with making perfect decisions. We want to try that stupid little serve and volley or that little drop shot, kind of go for it.
Yeah.
But if you don't do that stuff ever, you don't feel that it's a wrong mistake. Or there's going to be a time when you do want to hit that drop shot, but if you're so controlled and practiced to never make those decisions, you also never practice it for when you actually need to do it in a real match because there are those opponents where you're gonna have to do that stuff. So that's why I love that you were able to do that. And was that something you took the initiative on your own, or was it like your parents saying, "Hey, you should probably play some practice sets. Go find someone."
Yeah, I mean, it was me. Like, I don't know, it's not like I'm like not a lazy kid, but I don't know, I would always just want to go play more. And especially when I got my driver's license, like I would just be like, "Hey, I'm going to play." But yeah, again, I didn't have a private coach or anything, so I never had the pressure of them watching or anything like that. So it was kind of just on my own, like um, yeah, just setting them up and going and play. So
Man, that's awesome. No real
thanks.
private coach all the time. That's really good.
Yeah, I probably should have taken a couple lessons because my strokes are a little wacky, but
Well, it's interesting because it's easy to say that. At the same time, what if you pick the wrong coach and actually
true.
they mess things up, and now you feel the game in a way that you don't enjoy? And so, like, clearly, it's worked out to a pretty good degree for you, and you've gotten to a really good place. What time would you get out of school? Because you said you were able to play sometimes before or after. What time would you get out of school?
Yeah, I mean, I would get out probably around like 2, go drive to my club, play play for an hour, hour and a half, before the group, and then the group was like 2 hours. So, yeah, I was playing like 3 to 6, I would say on average, like 4 days a week, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday was kinda just on me finding kids to hit with. So,
Was there a point in time you started doing strength and conditioning a lot more?
yeah, to be honest, I didn't really take this too serious just because I was always a fast kid and I always had like the endurance, so I thought that was enough. Um, Actually, it wasn't until I got to college where strength and conditioning was actually something that was part of the tennis routine for me. And I mean, I wish I started sooner because I don't know, I can feel the impact it has just not on power, but also injury prevention. Because like, I mean, we're not really lifting to get bigger or anything like that. Um, we're more lifting, yeah, for that injury prevention and just like building the foundation so we don't get hurt.
So no real fitness in the juniors, just all your tennis and
Yeah, I
stuff.
mean, just maybe running, some conditioning, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I was always slacking in the gym, so yeah.
But you say slacking was, did they have a strength and conditioning program there and you just didn't do it, or you didn't know? So it was, again, it was all on you to figure out where to go, what to do, who to contact, because
Yeah, it
that's
wasn't it
unfair
wasn't
to
it
ask.
wasn't yeah, it wasn't worked into the group. So yeah, it was kind of just on me, but I never really never really got out and did it. So
No, well, look, I mean, that's why I'm doing this podcast, because I've seen this a lot. You don't know what you don't know. So you're just going to do what's told. And you might figure out some stuff based on what somebody said, but unless you don't get the direct information, okay, do strength and conditioning, but what does that entail for a 15, 16-year-old kid also just getting started? There's a certain way to do it. So, that's why we're doing this podcast, and I appreciate you coming on. Is maybe there's somebody listening that has a 10, 11-year-old kid and they haven't started. Maybe they're 13 and they're at least
yeah,
going to get a 3-year head start on you. And just based on what you said, it's like, okay, because that's something I ask everybody is, when did you get started? I was very lucky. My dad was a pro. So, I mean,
that's awesome.
I can't remember how young I started doing some sort of weights, right? So, but I was very lucky. So
Yeah.
not everyone is as lucky as I am. So, back to the junior parts where you started playing those national tournaments. So was my interpretation correct to think that you didn't play your first level one until 16s?
Um, I didn't play my first. Yeah, so actually, Easter Bowl was my first level one somehow. Like
First year or second year 16s?
second year of 16s. Yeah, right
Jeez.
before I aged up. Yeah, like I played a level two. The month before Easter Bowl. Did super well. Somehow I made the finals. Like I was beating these kids I had no clue I could beat. Got a bunch of points, got into Easter Bowl. I was already down in San Diego, like visiting my cousins. Um, and like, hey, like you can get into Easter Bowl. Like, okay, I might as well sign up. Like I didn't even know what it was. When I got rounded in singles, I think, but got fourth in doubles somehow.
What?
And yeah, that was like a real turning point for me. Like, this is what I want to do. I really like even before that I was kind of iffy on college tennis. But that was like a big turning point for me. Like this is what I want to do. Like I can be really good at this. So yeah, it was kind of
That's
late, but yeah,
yeah, that's crazy. Second year 16's first
yeah,
level one, and it's not like it was big on your mind. You're just like, oh, I guess I'll sign up. All right,
yeah.
cool.
It kind of helped me, I think, too, just not having any pressure. Like just go out there, play. Who cares?
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Well, do you remember what your UTR was? Were you even looking at your UTR at that point in time?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty bad. Like not bad, but like end of 16s, like before that little stretch, I was probably around a 9 UTR. It kind of spiked up after that, but yeah, I wasn't.
So
I
that's
don't know. Even my
sophomore year.
tennis, yeah, end of sophomore year. Yeah, I was. I didn't even know what tennis recruiting was. But then I beat these kids, and a couple of my friends were like, "Hey, man, like you're actually doing pretty good on this UTR system. You're doing good on this tennis recruiting system." I was like, "Oh, okay, nice." But
So when they start to bring that up and tennis recruiting and UTR comes on your mind now, did that do anything to your thought process? Did you feel any more pressure now that you thinking, hey, okay, let's go for college tennis? What was that like?
yeah, I mean, it added pressure because again, before I was kind of. I mean, obviously, I wanted to win. I'm a big competitor. But yeah, I would always check the UTR before matches, worry about the UTR, even if I won and it was a tight match with someone below me. Like I was upset because all I cared about was UTR anymore. Um, and I kind of started to get satisfied with doing well against higher UTRs. So it definitely impacted me negatively, but also I don't know. The tennis recruiting honestly motivated me just because I don't know. There's this one number system, and you know who's ahead of you, you know who's behind you. Um, but yeah, I would say it had some pressure and kind of in a bad way.
If you were to go back, would you try to handle it any differently?
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, once I got to college, like I don't really care about it anymore because it doesn't really matter. And it didn't really matter, but that was kind of just like your status, like your UTR. Um, but yeah, looking back, it didn't really matter. It didn't really affect how good you actually were at tennis. So
Yeah, and let's go further on that point that you said because I try to bring this up to juniors, but now that you brought it up, the fact that once you're in college, no one really cares.
no,
I
exactly,
mean,
yeah,
that's it. It's done. And doesn't matter if you're playing somebody in the lineup that is higher UTR, like you're not going to be satisfied if you lose close. Like you got to
yeah,
get the dub. You got to win.
yeah,
So you want to do it for your teammates. So, not to get full into college yet, but like then when you got into college, did that take some pressure off when you first started playing? Like, just play. I just got to get back to it. Or like when you first signed, let's go back. I mean, let's just at least hit that part. Did you ever feel like, okay, I'm going to school, I'm set, I know I'm playing college tennis, I can just kind of get back to playing? Or did you find some peace of mind before that?
yeah. Honestly, that was probably a big turning point. Like, it's not that UTR didn't matter to me anymore. Like, I still check it pretty often. Like, I'm gonna be
Sure.
honest, but um, yeah. Again, at that point, it was kind of like it doesn't matter. Like, it's still a good system to say like, oh, this is kind of the strength of the opponent I have, or we'll get some results. But I don't know. It's easy to say now, and it is hard in the moment. But yeah, it didn't matter after probably I committed and once I kind of got to college.
Yeah. So just to circle back now, so you have that Easter Bowl experience. Did you change anything in your training? Did you notice anything that, wow, I got to get better here. I got to do this, or was it like, hey, I can play at this level. I can do this.
Yeah, it was um kind of both. Like I I didn't decide to get a private coach or anything like that. I was kind of just sticking to the group, but I was a lot more focused. Like um I would take a lot less days off mentally because like before that I was obviously there playing, but I wasn't super focused on something specific. But I started working a lot harder, being more, I guess, conscientious of what I was actually doing at practice and not just hitting the tennis ball over the net.
So losing, and I think you even said you got your butt kicked there, but
Yeah,
losing actually helped you, motivated
yeah,
you, helped you
yeah,
focus when you got back, as opposed to being this thought that's like, oh, see, I'm not good enough. Why did I sign up for Easter Bowl? Like, what a
yeah,
waste of time. For you, is actually like, no, I want to come back. I want to do better. Right? Let's
yeah,
go. I mean, I guess I can be a better player. Let's get after it. There's more of that, huh?
yeah. I mean, my first round match was actually kind of close, so I didn't get completely spanked, but um, yeah, it was definitely a relief for me. Like, look, I haven't been super focused like a lot of these kids that I'm playing are, and I'm already kind of close in level to them. Like, I can compete with them, so just I don't know. It's kind of like imagine like if you would have focused, like, or imagine if you focus now, like you can start beating these kids. So it was definitely motivating for me.
Yeah, I think it's really awesome and really important that your approach to that, your perspective to that situation, because to me, there's two truths to every situation. You could easily walk away and say you lost first round and you didn't get a win, and that validates that you're not good enough. And in a way, you can understand how somebody might say that they lost first round, right?
Yeah,
Your approach was, hey, I know I lost, but I don't train like these kids. I haven't been as focused as these kids. If I do those things, I can get to this level and I can be even better than them,
yeah,
right? So, but
definitely.
you put your focus on that one as opposed to the I'm not good enough. And that positive perspective fueled you in a positive way. I've seen a lot of kids where they'll say, well, I guess I'm not good enough. Like, gosh, what am I going to do? And they panic, and then actually it just spirals out of control and they lose confidence as opposed to you gaining confidence and seeing, hey, I can do better here. So I think that was really important for you. I know that for you, you don't think about that because you just did it. But to me, like I see it a lot with kids, and I
Yeah.
sometimes have to get them to look at the healthier perspective. So at what point did you start looking at colleges where, hey, okay, it's time to look ahead, getting to junior year, you know, or was it senior year? I know some kids sign late. You started playing tennis late. When did all this, okay, I got to make my list start to come into play?
Yeah, it was I started I guess pretty early, like early junior year. Just kind of looking at some schools, talking to coaches. Again, I hadn't this college tennis hadn't been in my mind for that long, so I didn't have any schools in mind. Um, but I worked kind of with a recruiting coordinator, and he kind of set me up with like, hey, these are pretty good fit for you. I still wasn't like that highly rated or ranked at the time I started looking, but that's probably when I started just getting exposed to the college tennis atmosphere.
And so, at what point did you start to narrow it down, and what were those schools? You know that you got your kind of top three, top five.
Yeah, I mean, it was honestly I didn't have that many schools. Like I think I visited Denison, I visited a school called Redlands, it's in California, and I visited a school called Wesleyan, which is in Connecticut, all D3 schools. Um, those are like my top three. And I mean, the University of Utah, I wasn't getting recruited by them, but walking on there was always kind of an option I had because I had good grades. I could have gotten a good scholarship there, academically. So those are kind of the four options I had. Yeah.
So you ended up choosing Denison. At what point did you
Yeah.
choose Denison? What grade were you in?
I think I fall of senior year. Yeah, kind of like late fall of senior year.
Okay, and what made you choose Denison?
Honestly, it was kind of the team, like the guys. I don't know, all the schools I went to kind of told me the same thing, like we're gonna make you better, we're gonna get the most out of your tennis game as you can. But honestly, when it came down to it, I really felt kind of integrated in the team already when I visited. They're all really chill guys, and I don't know, I could tell this is where I wanted to spend my next 4 years. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask this, but then I have follow-ups to this. Do you
Yeah.
remember what your ranking or UTR rating was at the time that you agreed to go to Denison?
Um, I don't remember, probably 10 something. Um, and I don't know my tennis recruiting.
Okay.
Probably somewhere in the low four stars, maybe high 100s. But I kept like I know a lot of kids kind of stop playing tournaments once they commit to schools, and I kept playing just because I wanted to. And I don't know, my tennis recruiting went up to I think I finished like 90 or something in my class, and then I think when I actually finished my junior tennis, I was around 11 UTR. So yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going to get into now. So, I mean, you finished 92 on the tennis
Okay.
recruiting
Yeah.
test, so top 100, and I mean, even a low 10 UTR, they're first of all top 100 nationally. You could probably find a D1 school to walk onto. I don't know if you'll
Yeah.
get a scholarship, but you can go to a D1 school and play. Your UTR is good enough to play. You know, first, do you think that you weren't recruited by some of those schools just because you started playing so late? You just weren't on their radar so much?
Yeah, I would say so because when I started looking, I wasn't that highly recruited, and like once I started narrowing down my list, it was like I mean, kind of too late. Like not a lot of schools were gonna reach out that late. I mean, I probably could have done a little more on the searching front, but um, I had a great visit, and again, I didn't really know so much like what D1 was or D3 was, and the difference because I didn't really know what college tennis was. Yeah.
So now you get Denison. Did you know how good the level was going to be there?
Yeah, so I don't know, when I came on a visit, I knew I would kind of be the bottom of the lineup my freshman year coming in, and that's what I wanted. Like I wanted to play all 4 years, but I didn't want to be like the best on my team because I mean, I probably want to be a very good team if I was the best coming in. But um yeah, we um yeah, I think I was kind of middle of the lineup, bottom of the lineup when I committed, so yeah.
Well, and now, and I asked that question because, you know, I looked at all the people you've been playing against recently.
Yeah.
I mean, you're consistently playing against other D1 level players with
Yes.
UTRs in the mid to high 11s, 12s, and even low 10s. That's D1. So you're continuously playing D1 level opponents, even though you're playing D3.
Yeah.
You know, so you're working your butt off there. You know, this is not just, oh, I'm playing D3, I'm just going to cruise through, you know. So, and was that surprising to you, or is that just kind of what you expected?
Um
I say that
yeah.
more for me. Like, this is a little
Yeah.
bit more for me because again, I think all of this is a really good education, not just for parents or kids listening to this, but for me too. I was all big football schools, D1. That's all I ever knew. So I'm learning a lot more now about how high the level is at all these other places. So because I want to lead into this question, right? Because you're still there, you know, obviously you're still very happy there, but has anyone ever tried to say like, hey, just why don't you go play D1? What are you doing there, man?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're so good. Go play D1. Go to big football games, big basketball games, big name schools. Has anyone had that conversation with you?
Yeah, I mean, going back to your first thought, like, I don't know. I knew D3 was actually a good level because when I visited, there were players better than me here. And Denison, I think, was like maybe 15 in the country at the time. So I knew D3 would get a lot better than even what I was exposed to when I came on my visit. Um, but I also knew there were going to be some matches that felt like high school tennis because I mean there's a big range of level at the D3 level. Um, but then going to your second question, like, yeah, it's obviously crossed my mind. Um, I've never, I've considered playing tennis past college, but I've always wanted to get the most out of the 4 years that I could because realistically, I don't see myself continuing with tennis much after college. So yeah, you could go D1, you could play with better kids, you can get a lot better. Um, but I don't know, I wanted to play, and that's been my main thing, and I feel like I'm playing at a high level, and I've gotten better since I've been here. So
For sure. I mean, I was looking at your regional championship. I mean, everyone's 11 and 12
yeah,
UTRs. I mean,
exactly.
they're top 25 D1 schools that have some 12 UTRs on there, and you're playing against them.
Yeah,
So I think not having the knowledge of college tennis and these other division levels, and not having that bias helped you just go into taking a trip to Denison with just open mind and see what it is. And it looks great. Cool.
yeah,
Let's want to be a part of that. It wasn't, you didn't try to label it. You didn't try to look at the divisions or the conferences or anything. You saw what you needed to see and you're like, this is going to push me. I'm going to have to work hard. This is a school that I'm going to get a good education, and I'm going to be around a great team and good coaches.
yeah,
So, because I know, and I'm having these conversations with kids and parents that they'll cross off names of schools before ever going, just because of the conference they're in, just
yeah,
because of the division. And I think that's a shame. And I think you're a great example of not how just the great education you can get, but the level of tennis you can get.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean that's awesome stuff. And clearly, things are working out. I mean, ITA All American, so many awards. I was looking down your list. I mean, first team doubles, third team singles. There's just too much for me to name because I'd just be wasting the podcast time. But yeah, that's awesome. Have you thought about playing any pro tournaments at all just to see where your level is there and continuing it?
yeah. I mean, I would kind of want to play some futures just to see like it would be cool to get an ATV point. I don't know. That's a little goal of mine. If I could somehow do that, then I would be like, that's pretty cool. But I don't know. Again, school's always been my priority, and that's also another reason why I chose Denison. It's a good school. Along with I'm gonna really like it here. Um, but I don't know. It's not something that I'm planning on.
Uh, well, good, man. Well, look, it's been great to hear your story. Great to see how
Thank
you
you.
got there. And I think it's really cool you know, how late things came for you, but it didn't deter you. You kept pushing and you got through it, and you're in a great place. So that's awesome, man. So
Yeah,
thanks for your time. Wishing you all the
appreciate
best
you.
on your
Yeah.
tennis journey. So,
Thanks so much for having me.
all right. Thanks, man.
Yeah, see you.